This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hey there everyone, and welcome back to In Range. I'm Cameron Harris, and this is episode number 14. Today we're going to be talking about exercise. Now, as we all know, exercising is crucial to staying healthy, but if you have diabetes, it does require a little bit of extra thought to make sure that you don't go low afterwards. This is because when you're exercising, your body is burning up more energy and therefore more carbs than it usually does during the day. As such, you have a tendency to go low afterwards. But there are some things you can do to prevent that. Let me show you a typical workout for me and what I do to make sure I don't go low afterwards. So I am about to work out, and the first thing that I want to do is tests, of course. Now, I want to test to make sure that I, for one thing, am not low before I start working out, because once I start working out, my numbers are going to go down even further, and if I'm already low, that's not helping anyone. If I am low, then I'll eat a little something, a carb most likely, and wait a little while, test up and make sure I'm back up in range, and then I will work out. If I'm in range already, then I'm good to go. If I'm a little bit high, then I'll back off just a little bit on the changes that I'm about to make. Also, this isn't a necessity, but if you do have the option of planning when you're going to work out in the course of your day, try to plan it sometime right after a meal. So like in my case, I try to do my workout right after I've had lunch, because then I've already got a lot of carbs in me. And I still shoot up for that meal, or almost, we'll talk about that in a second, but I still shoot up for that meal, so I've still got insulin in me, but I found that it really just helps to have the carbs and the insulin in me already for whatever reason. Now, a typical workout for me consists of a series of weights on a weight bench, some crunches on the floor, as well as about half an hour to 45 minutes on a stationary bike. Now, that's quite a bit of movement, and it's a pretty tough workout. As such, I take pretty extreme measures to make sure that I don't go low afterwards. Now, in your case, you will probably want to start with some less aggressive measures, and I'll talk about how you can back off the steps that I take, but this is some of the stuff that I do to make sure that I don't go low. The first thing I do is I use my pump to reduce my background insulin or basal rate to what's called a temporary rate, where I actually reduce the amount of insulin that's going into me by a percentage. Now, I back mine off to around 60%. Now, that's a pretty extreme measure. You might want to start by backing off to 80 or maybe even 90% and just see how it goes. If that's not enough, then just keep reducing it every time you work out. If you're not on a pump, talk to your doctor about reducing the amount of insulin you shoot up just before you work out. That might be a meal bolus or something like that, but you'll want to talk to your doctor about that one. Something else I do just before I work out, as I test up, is I eat an extra carb and don't shoot up for it. Now, that I typically work off during my workout, so not shooting up insulin for it doesn't really matter. Now, I mentioned earlier, I try to work out just after a meal. If you do that, you can actually simplify things even further by just not shooting up for one carb of the meal. But that's, again, saying that if you do this, you may not want to eat the whole carb just before you work out. You might only need to back off your insulin or only need to eat the carb. You really want to just figure things out as you go. When you're just starting out, test up frequently during your workout and figure out what plan works for you. Start slow. Keep tweaking things until they're working just right. Now, the last thing I do actually comes after I've done my workout. Once I've completed my workout, I immediately test to see where I am. Now, if I'm usually pretty good after I've just worked out, because the exercise sometimes takes a few minutes to start to work its magic on your blood sugars. But about an hour after I work out, I test up again to see what it's doing to my numbers. If you do go low, treat it just like any other low. If you're in range, though, you know you've done your job. When you're first starting out, your workout, and you're just starting to formulate your system, though, test every now and then during your workout, maybe every
10 minutes or something like that, and see what's going on. See which parts of the exercise are taking their toll more than others. Tweak your system, eat more carbs, give yourself less insulin, do whatever it takes to make sure that you stay in range during your workout.
Now, something that I always do once my workout is completed is I always test directly afterwards and then again about an hour afterwards. Always set a timer just to make sure you don't forget. That's because sometimes the effects of your workout can take a little while to kick in, and then you want to test about an hour later to see whether or not you've been accurate with both your carbs and, of course, reducing your rate. If you're low, go ahead and treat it, but if you're in range, you know you've done your job. Now, this is great for any kind of workout that you may do, but this also applies to any form of activity that you do that's more strenuous than usual. Even just working out in the yard or cleaning up the garage, for me, I treat like an exercise. Also, you want to be particularly careful with things like swimming or snowshoeing. Those are things that I do that require a lot more effort than most sports. Swimming, in particular, because you're moving your entire body, not just your arms if you're lifting weights, your legs if you're bicycling. You're moving everything, and as such, you burn through the carbs sometimes twice as fast. Now, as such, with those kinds of sports, I will test actually more frequently while I'm doing them, typically like every half an hour or so. And then just if something starts to go wrong, you can catch it much faster before you actually start to feel bad and have to stop the activity completely. So I hope you found this episode useful. In the meantime, be sure to visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com. There we have the show notes, the forums, all that great stuff. And if you have any questions or comments or even ideas for the show, go ahead and send me an email. I'm at harwoodpodcast@comcast.net. I'll catch you guys later, and good luck staying in range.